If I could change how accountants saw payroll, I wasn't just changing my own career, I was changing that for payroll going forward, and would completely disrupt what was currently in play. And it needed disruption. It definitely did. I think things have become a bit complacent and people needed to look at things differently. They wouldn't give me a partnership because I wasn't an accountant. That's when I was like, yeah, challenge on, I will be a partner.
Here we are, and you are.
Yeah.
This is for you, Maria. Now, on a serious note, I couldn't agree more. I think managing a global team is complex, but Deel makes it simpler with payroll, HR, IT, and compliance all in one place. That's why over 35,000 businesses trust Deel to hire, pay, and manage their teams worldwide. See how Deel works at deel.com/nickday. That's DEEL.com/NICKDAY. Deel, your forever people platform. Hello and welcome back to the Payroll Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Nick Day. I'm CEO at JGA Recruitment Group. And today we have the privilege of speaking with Maria Mason, a distinguished leader in the payroll industry and someone I've known now for best part of 20 years, someone I absolutely love catching up with. We love a good drink. We love a good chat about the world of payroll. And I'm sure today is going to be no different. But for those not familiar, and before I go into detail about today's guest, I just want to give you all a little reminder to click on that subscribe or follow button on your favorite podcast app. Please do share this show with all of your payroll colleagues and friends, because it's together as a community we can really raise the profile of payroll. And if you want to make me really grateful, if you can leave a review for the show, I would be in your debt. So if you're listening to this and you enjoy the show, please do those things for me. It really does help push the rankings and, of course, push the profile of payroll at the same time. So what are we going to talk about in today's episode? Well, we're going to be delving into Maria's illustrious career, the challenges she's overcome, her perspectives on career progression in the world of payroll, and, of course, most importantly, perhaps, her advice for those aspiring to excel in this wonderful profession that is, of course, payroll. For those not familiar, I can say that she is a partner at BDO UK LLP, where she specializes in delivering a quality outsourced payroll service to a diverse range of clients. From small businesses to large international corporations, Maria has over 30 years experience in payroll, and she's been absolutely instrumental in leveraging technology to enhance payroll and HR processes as well. Her dedication to the profession was recently recognized with the Luminary Award at the Chartered Institute of Payroll Professionals CIPP Annual Excellence Awards as well. I have tracked Maria's career for 4, 5, 6 different employers. I've absolutely loved watching her transition from payroll professional to really being right to the top of her game as a partner at one of the largest accountancy firms in the world. So without further ado, Maria, it's always a pleasure, never a chore. Welcome again to the Payroll Podcast. How are you doing today?
Oh, absolutely fantastic. And so thankful to be back. I can't think of anyone more special in my career than probably yourself. I think you've been pinnacle for a number of the positions that I've taken that certainly changed my direction. So, of course, I value what you do, and I know that you are equally as passionate as I am about changing the profile of payroll and changing what we do and how it is seen. So that for me has always been such a strong passion. And I know that's one of the things that we definitely share, along with a long career history. So yeah, absolutely delighted to be asked back.
Always a pleasure to have you here. I should probably give some of our listeners that maybe not familiar a little bit of context, because we've worked together as a candidate and recruiter relationship, as a client recruiter relationship as well. So we really have worked together for an awful long time. And as a pre-warning, both of us can talk for England. So this should be a really interesting conversation. Of course, I've got to go back to my question I've asked you before, and I'm keen to know if it's changed. But what does the word payroll now, in this current wonderful world we live in, mean to you?
I think it still means, it certainly has the same value to me, but what is delightful and what is fantastic to see is actually where I'd always valued payroll and where I saw payroll people and the importance of the work that was being done. I can't say that that was always the same back when I joined, and it was much more laborious, a lot more manual processes, and not so much technology being utilized. So to be part of something that has been so dynamically changed and so driven, and certainly within my own firm, we use everything from AI right through to robotic processes. Everything is changed to enable us to do check-in of hundreds of thousands of lines in a matter of seconds. It's completely changed how we look at payroll, but the fundamental core of how payroll professionals behave has not changed at all. But it is absolutely fantastic to see that other people recognize the great work they do and how dedicated and focused, and how professional these people are. And that for me is the fantastic thing, to now have seen that change and be part of that and to watch it continue to grow.
Absolutely. I think, and also you've been one of those individuals in the profession that's really helped amplify the voice of payroll. Again, for those maybe not familiar, you're one of the, I think, potentially the first person that got partner status within a large firm, certainly in the UK. So reflecting back on sort of your extensive career now, which I think is around 30 years or something along
Yeah.
those lines, what have been some of the standout highlights that have helped shape the journey?
I think there's been so many, because I think one thing that I've always looked to do is break down those boundaries, challenge what's happening in the profession, to try and be first in a number of things that I've done and to not be held back by what's been done previously. So I think there's been many highlights in there. I think the first one was probably when I graduated with my payroll degree. My daughter, when I started, was only 6 months old. I was working full time, had a team of 45, producing hundreds of thousands of pay slips a month, in the largest bureau at that time. And to be there and to have that, and to then have done 3 years and then came away with I didn't go to university. I didn't do all of those things before. And so never knew that capability, and was I somebody who could do that. So to do that, holding a full-time job, being a mother to a very young daughter, was pretty amazing. It's still something. I went to the graduation of three of my team the end of last year, and to watch them just brought back my old memories of, oh my gosh, I remember being on that stage. I remember getting that and how proud I was of that. I think then, as you alluded to earlier, the CIPP Luminary, that for me, to have won that 2 years on the trot, was spectacular. I'm not sure that's been done before. And so for me, that, because that's marked the judges are peers and titans of the payroll community, that was fantastic to then have them say, actually, that's deserved. So I think that's probably another one. And then obviously, as you said earlier, the becoming a partner at BDO, to be that first payroll specialist partner, non-accountant, in the top 5 and in the top 20, I think I was at that point. And then to move to equity so quickly after that. So you become salaried and then move to equity, and to do that within a year, it was not even something that I had thought was possible. I always knew I wanted to be a partner. I always knew I wanted to show payroll had a place, but never thought that it would go at the speed that it did. So to get there, I think, yeah, they're probably the main highlights along my career.
Well, since knowing you for the 2 decades I have, Maria, I think when you've put your mind to something, you set out your objectives to me 20 years ago, and it's
Yeah.
amazing. I've kind of watched you cross each one off along the way. So, what's your next goal? You've got the luminary, you've got partner status, equities. I know you're always driven, you're always pushing the needle forward. What's the challenge you're aiming for right now?
I think for me now, it is not to start. I think there's so much more to be done in the payroll industry. So I'm building at the moment the advisory part of payroll. And that for me was exciting. That was, roles that I'd had before. And I loved that. And, I want my team to be able to experience that, to go on client sites, advising about their processes, technology, all the things that we've done to give, the team another wide range of roles that they can carry on moving forward. So that for me is really important. So to continue to grow and expand what we do within BDO in that payroll world. I think I look at leadership, wouldn't it be great to have somebody on the leadership team within BDO that is a payroll professional? I think that's pretty cool as well. So that's obviously on my forefront, and that's another challenge I've set myself. And then I think it is also about giving back. I'm a massive believer in you have to give back when you've been there. And I've been very fortunate to know some amazing people in the industry. So for me, it's still about continuing to raise that profile, ensure we don't lose that, to give other people and to help other people have that voice. To be heard and to be seen. So for me, still lots to do. So yeah, still as passionate as I was 20 years ago. That's never gone.
Well, one thing I've always discovered from talking with you over the years is you've never kind of discussed your own achievements really as an island. You've always brought in your team. You've always championed those around you. I'm sure the listeners would love to know some of the work you have done to move the industry forward. Because I know you do a lot of mentoring. You've brought
Yeah.
some amazing team members through. Everyone that's ever worked with you speaks so passionately about having you in their corner. And I think it's a real credit to the work that you've done. And obviously, I speak widely around the industry. I don't think I've ever heard a negative word said for anyone that's worked with you. You've always championed and supports them with their career journey. So tell us a little bit more about that side of your work, the mentorship and the development side of teams.
I think, yeah, that for me was always important. And I'd always said that when I was in a position to be able to change how it looked, I remember one of the my first payroll role with a very, very large corporate. But they didn't care about age, experience, time served. They cared about what you delivered. So I was the youngest consultant, one of the first female salespeople. So there was a lot of first there. And they really did. They invested heavily on training qualifications because they believed everyone was the highest consultant in whatever arena you'd chosen. So they were a fantastic company and gave me some very core morals that I felt that actually, I think unfortunately a lot of firms have lost along the way, and so then it becomes difficult to be able to do that. So I always said that when I'm in a position to be able to change how careers go, then I need to take responsibility for that. So when I joined BDO, it was very much they had a very specific way of working, but I knew payroll wasn't in that remit. It was for accountants. So it was about mirroring what we did for our graduates to have that kind of program within the payroll arena. So taking people at the lower levels that may not have a lot of experience and giving them a platform to be able to develop. So I'm absolutely delighted. Every single manager within my team is homegrown. None of them have been bought in. We only take at the lower grades, which I know disappoints recruiters. But joking aside, I think it is amazing to be able to watch them. So 66% of my team got a promotion last year. If I look at some of the managers, they may have had 9-10 promotions over the last 3 or 4 years. So what I wanted to do was give a dynamic but safe environment, because what we have people that we say are movers, and they're the people that want my job and they want that. But then we also have what we call stabilizers. They're the people that want to do an amazing job, but they don't want my job. They don't want to become a partner, but they still want to be recognized for doing an amazing payroll job. And that for me was really important, was to give a safe environment where you could do, because things change as people go along their career as well. People have families, things happen in your home life, people might want to travel. There's lots of things that might change what your dynamic is on that year. So I wanted to give an environment that enabled people to be able to grow at the pace they wanted to grow at. We invested heavily. So I worked with our L&D team to build a qualification structure with the CIPP that enabled people to keep gaining qualification, so after probation could go on there. So we invested heavily on the training, and then just wanted to ensure that people were treated with respect and fairly. So we never asked somebody to train somebody who may earn more money than them. So we are very strict. Once again, recruiters love us, I'm sure, for that, where we won't go over that barrier, because I think I wanted to build a strong trust with the people around me, because these are the people that make me and the firm very successful. So for me, that was absolutely core. So yeah, I do that. That's my team. And then I do an awful lot of mentoring outside of my team, and also outside of the firm to help people to understand language to use, how you communicate to get your message across. I think everyone knows I'm very loud and very passionate. But what I learned a long time ago, it's not the volume of your voice, it's actually the meaning behind that to actually get heard. So it's speaking the correct language, speaking in a language that others understand. And a lot of people don't understand payroll. So to be talking about a payroll process is not going to get it through. So talk about risk, which everyone understands, tends to get more of a leverage with the people that you want to speak with. So yeah, a lot to help people develop.
Funny enough, we use the same language from a recruitment standpoint. We're dealing with people that don't necessarily respect or want to invest in payroll. We'll often highlight the risks in terms of
Yeah.
compliance, of getting it wrong, and it's important that, as you say, it's a universal language. I think you mentioned a couple of points about why recruiters may or may not want to work with you because you do everything in house. I love working with you because you're very transparent, right? I know
Yeah.
exactly where I stand. I think your team know exactly where they stand with you as well. And you're very honest and very upfront about your beliefs in payroll. And one of those, having worked with you as a recruiter as well on the candidate side of things over the years, I'd always sort of say, well, Maria's the unicorn. When a company needs something that's outside of their comfort zone, they think this person doesn't exist. Typically, Maria will fit that mold. And what I think I highlight this, what I think is really interesting for those listening that aren't quite sure where their trajectory might go, where they go next, is you've taken quite a few risks in your career. You've worked in operational payroll. I pulled you out and you worked into a sales role, and you went from sales into bureau. You've taken all these different steps. And every time you've gone, you know what, Nick, I'm up for the challenge. It's going to give me a really rounded view of the industry. I'll see it from more perspectives. I know it will help me in the future. I think it probably has done. It's given you a lot of strings to your bow, if you like, to be able to put different hats on in different situations, understand the psychology of sales versus
Yeah.
psychology of compliance and all these things. Tell the listeners a little bit more about that journey, where you've taken perhaps some left field career opportunities that ultimately have worked in
Yeah.
your favor in the longer term.
I think that's the thing. I think I'm somebody who always looks for a challenge. So I was with a very large corporate for about 13 years. I'd done many roles. So I'd done an awful lot of roles, from, team manager through to a payroll manager, through to account managing, implementation, all of the roles, because I always felt that if you wanted to be at the top of your career, you needed to understand all elements of your business. And that for me was always the aim, is I needed to understand everything. I needed to understand all parts of business, whether that, as you say, were commercial, whether that be client management, whether that be delivery. I needed to understand all of that to feel confident. And I think that's probably the most important word, as I've gone on, that confidence builds, because you're able to trial it and actually see what you're good at and what makes you in there. So I was in that company for 13 years, but decided that, actually, am I any good outside? What happens if I try and transfer these skills somewhere else? Wonder if I can't do it, if it's the name that is selling, not me, or and I felt that I didn't want to put myself in that mold where I started to question who I was and could I do it. So I moved, and that's where we worked together the first time, to a much smaller company that had recently sort of purchased, three entrepreneurs had purchased a bureau and a software house, and took a massive risk because they couldn't, or they said they couldn't afford somebody from where I'd come from and the package I'd had before. But I sort of knew that actually I could trust myself. And so I remember we had the discussion. It was like, they're only going to pay this salary. And I said, okay, well, I'll take that. But as long as they give me a percentage of everything we sell after, and there's no limit, no thing. And they were like, and I said, then I take the risk. They don't. And yeah, the day I closed my first £1 million deal for them was a very happy day. But what I wanted to do was be able to prove and say that if I can trust myself, and if I think I have that capability, then you're not taking that risk, I am. And I'm very lucky to have a very supportive husband and family that have always sort of stood by when those decisions were made. But yeah, that was very successful. It then got bought, and I got moved to another part of the business to help grow that. Became a board director there. Um, but knew that that wasn't going as fast as I wanted to go. And I knew that I was becoming, I don't want to say an age because I don't think that's right, but I knew for myself that I didn't want to get stuck, and I didn't want it to be that I was there. And that is, once again, you turned up without expecting, you didn't know what was going on, and I hadn't said anything
I
to
needed another
anyone.
unicorn, I think is what happened.
It
Yeah.
was, and I'd sort of not told anyone that I was walking away from the board, other than the firm, and we were going through, discussions at that point. And then you came up with that, and I remember saying, "Oh no, not an accountancy firm. That's a definite no. We're not doing that. They don't appreciate, they don't know what I do. They won't understand payroll." But then after meeting them, knew that they desperately wanted to know all of those things, and they desperately wanted to make that work, and knew that they tried many different other options and it wasn't working. But they needed, as you said, somebody that was commercial, but somebody also knew how to run a bureau. And that's when I moved to BDO, which was a big risk. And I remember having a long discussion with my husband, because once again it felt a bit of a sort of sidestep. But I don't think anyone should ever look at it like that. I think you always have to look at the long-term goal. And I knew that if I could change how accountants saw payroll, I wasn't just changing my own career, I was changing that for payroll going forward, and would completely disrupt what was currently in play. And it needed disruption. It definitely did. I think things had become a bit complacent, and people needed to look at things differently. And so for me, it was actually, this could make a massive difference to the industry you're in. This isn't just about you. And so, yeah, that challenge was the one. And when they said, yeah, they wouldn't give me a partnership because I wasn't an accountant, that's when I was like, yeah, challenge on, I will be a partner.
And
So,
here we
yeah,
are. And
so,
you are.
yeah.
Yeah. So look, we know that I'm a big fan of the idea of the infinite game. Like, we never know if bad news is good news or good news is bad news until we see time play out. And every career journey has its particular challenges. You've highlighted a couple there, but they were challenges that you knew, you kind of went in with your eyes open. What about some of the unexpected challenges you've had to navigate, and how did you overcome those?
I think probably the hardest, and I think BDO probably shone that more, although I now can look back and say, actually, that was happening a lot. As I said earlier, anyone who knows me, I'm not scared to be opinionated. I'm not scared to have a voice. But I probably learned that actually it wasn't, as I said, the volume of the voice. It was actually the messaging of that language, and being able to get people to trust, and respect. And when you've got that, they tend to, everything else follows. And so, of course, I went in thinking, oh, I've been in sales, I'm really good. I've been a board director, I've managed huge teams in the past, I've got this. But then to go into an accounting world with, 300, well, I think there was nearly 300 partners at that time, and suddenly realizing these people all controlled their own, and they could control what was happening with you and your clients. And payroll wasn't particularly valued, so having that voice, I had to learn very quickly on how to speak the language, because me just going in saying this isn't working, we're not getting a big enough recovery, this isn't good enough, the turnarounds and all that thing, and you can't sell it as part of a deal for something else. This is a valued service. Wasn't working by going in and just talking like that. So I learned very quickly it was about the risk. It was about fighting battles that I could actually change. So instead of trying to change what had happened with clients before, let's work on new clients coming in. So look at how we sell, how we contract with those clients, what we deliver, set expectations from the start, set pricing from the start. So I realized very quickly that navigating and just telling people that you needed to do something because I'm the expert was not enough. I needed to prove myself. And as I said, speak that language that resonated, talk about risk and be able to prove. So show that with a new client coming in, this is the kind of recovery when it's sold correctly, dealt with correctly, and has the right fees. this is what we can achieve, and this is the risk I've mitigated against this one here. And I think this was probably the biggest learning curve. I thought I'd come in to and thought that I'd learn everything I needed, and realized that, yeah, I didn't have an awful lot of skill sets. So I needed to hone them in a different way to be able to get my audience to, react and do what I needed to be done, really. So yeah, that was probably one of the harder lessons, but one that I tell lots of people now, including my team, to speak the right language.
For those that want to speak the right language, they want to move forward in the industry, they want to progress. We've seen the world of payroll change. I've certainly seen it change from a recruitment perspective. There's, people don't always know where the weight is now when it comes to career advancement. I've got my own views a little bit here. I would argue that the attributes now become more important than ever before, those soft
Yeah.
skills. But then, therefore, where's the weight now in relation to formal qualifications? You talked about those you put through the CIP program when you first got your degree. You've now obviously a Luminary member as well, but if those listening that want to advance their careers, is it hands-on experience they should be focusing on? Is it formal qualifications? Is it more the softer skills and leadership and bringing sort of the right attitude to the table? Is it a combination of all three? And if so, where would you weight them? I'd love to get some of your thoughts on that.
I think, and I've thought about this a lot over the years, because I've been challenged quite a lot by this, because as somebody who truly believes in qualifications equally, I think they all have their own bearing. And if I look back at my own career and go, well, what did I gain? If I look at qualifications, that probably taught me resilience, trying to manage a home and a young family and a job, and a full-time job, and a really hard one back in the day where we were still doing year ends manually. That was pretty intense, but enabled me to understand how robust I was, how resilient I was, actually taught me a number of things. But actually, a lot of the skills I learned through the degree, actually I still use today. A lot of it was around, because remember, that degree is a payroll manager degree. So it's about being an all-rounder. So it covers everything from projects, people, everything. And a lot of that skill that I learned actually is definitely used today. So I think that serves a really strong purpose for me personally, but actually I think in the workplace as well, if you want to go up the ranks in the element, because that's something I think is important. Qualification should be relevant to where the person is going,
Sure.
which I think that degree, and I work a lot with the CIPP on talking about qualifications, and they brought in some new ones, because not everyone wants to be a payroll manager. Some people want to be absolutely technical gurus and be the best payroll professional they can, but that doesn't mean they need to manage a team to do that. So, and I like that the CIPP are prepared to listen and change those things. So I think qualifications relevant to the role that you are undertaking, I think, have an importance. But I also think you cannot dismiss expertise. You cannot dismiss experience. The greatest lessons are learned when things go wrong. And let me tell you, I'd hope they never do, but they will. But I always say to my team, whatever goes wrong, as long as we address it and ensure it never happens again, it's a good lesson to learn. Because of the way that payroll is, and it happens every, period, and it's repetitive, and there's lots of places it can go wrong, and we're reliant upon so many internal measurements by people, other teams, as well as HMRC, pension regulator. There's a lot of places for it to go. So I think it's important that experience, expertise, and being able to develop and grow your skill set is absolutely fundamental to that role. But I also think those soft skills, I think, are of utmost importance. And that's one of the things in BDO, we, have a massive portfolio of things like presenting, how to deal with difficult scenarios, how to work with different people. I'm a very visual person. Paul, the other partner in my team, is very analytical. So if you're coming at us, there's a difference of what will
Yeah.
get my buy-in a lot quicker than Paul's. You show him a spreadsheet, he's delighted. That's not enough for me. You show me a graph, it's a whole different matter. So it's about understanding that. So the more skills that you have and the more well-rounded they are, the more that you will ensure that they don't stop. And as I said, in my team, we're looking at the advisory. So people are going in, helping clients to look at their own processes, advise them on things and how to mitigate risk in their own businesses, implementing systems, etc. So they're helping businesses to do what we've done. And so the more well-rounded you are, the more opportunities you will have in those roles.
Attention payroll leaders. If you're listening to this, you already know that payroll has never been more complex. Compliance risks are rising, skilled talent is scarce, and getting it wrong can cost your business way more than just money. It can cost you trust, retention, and of course, brand reputation. I'm Nick Day, host of this show and also CEO of JGA Recruitment Group, specialist global payroll recruiters. Here at JGA, we're so passionate about payroll, we've even turned it into music. Don't believe us? Head to your favorite audio platform and search for Payroll Powers the World, and you can quite literally join us in song about how we believe payroll deserves its moment in the boardroom to shine. At JGA, we'd like to think our passion shines through to our recruitment results as well. With a 97% retention rate and an average 19-day job brief to hire success rate, we work fast, we work strategically, and we work with purpose to connect you to the hidden payroll talent that job ads and direct search methods will simply never reach. So if you're hiring or indeed planning to hire, why not partner with the experts that are shaping the future of payroll? Partner with jgarecruitment.com today, or better yet, drop me a message directly, and together we can make sure your next payroll hire is your best one yet. Sounds like you and Paul are like the dream team. You've got a bit of left brain, little right brain working together. You know, you've
Oh,
got a bit
yin
of
and
everything
yang
going
work.
on. And Paul, I do know Paul as well. He's fantastic. So you really are the dream team in real life as well. But looking back then, I'm a big fan of reflections. And I think you seem to have achieved most of the goals you've set out to achieve. And I know you've got more there. But is there anything you would have approached differently if you had the opportunity with hindsight to approach your career path again in a different way?
I often think about that now, you know, when you think of a role and you think, oh, did I stay too long? Or if I'd done something and then thought, why didn't I trust my gut and things like that? You know, I knew it wasn't right, but I gave it a go. Or it might have been that it might not have been me personally. Somebody in the team has wanted to do something and I've sort of, I don't really, but I wanted them to have to learn. So there are things that I think, oh, would I have done that differently? Would I maybe not have stayed somewhere as long and moved on quicker? But actually, I think the lessons we learn determine who we are. And if I look at my confidence and knowing who I am now and knowing exactly what I like, what I don't like, learning things that are fundamental to me about respect and trust with the people that you work with, and things that probably I wouldn't have valued or placed the same level of value back in the early days are things that are absolutely core. And so I think, would I change anything? No, because I think that's turned me into the person I am today. And I think I'm very resilient, have a lot of different skills and are very well rounded. And I'm able to do and choose how my day now looks, with the role that I have. And so for me, that is so valuable. And I know what I enjoy. So I enjoy stuff like this. I enjoy all of the thought leadership, but I also enjoy commercial, the sales and things like that, and also the people. So there's lots of things. So I can now make sure that my days consist of all of the things that I enjoy. Because let's face it, every job there'd be a day that you didn't quite enjoy, because a side swipe comes in and it's something that you hadn't planned happens. But I think if you can always put in a bit of what you enjoy every day, it makes it a much better week.
I think that's really important advice. I had Alan Stein Jr., who used to be, I don't know if anyone's listened to the episode of the Payroll podcast released a few months ago. He was LeBron James's basketball coach, and you know he's working at the highest level at NBA. He wrote a great book called Sustain Your Game. And I think you've answered some of that a moment ago in some of your responses. It's for the payroll professionals that want to progress their careers. it can be difficult because a lot of them are facing burnout. They feel that sometimes they've got things so streamlined as payroll can become a little bit like Groundhog Day. So how do you sustain that passion for the industry?
Advice I'd give to others looking to progress, I would say that I think the most important thing is to not let others determine your day and the timeframes of your career. I think if I'd have maybe thought about that a bit more in the early stages, although I've always been very focused, I think sometimes if you don't have great people around you, you can be constrained by others and what's in the team and where you can go and how to do that. So I think it's important to have a focus on what it is you want to achieve and to try lots of different things to understand what it is that you like. So I've got some great people that are very, very technical. So we've made sure that as part of their day, they deal with the new technology projects. They deal with things that
Nice.
are actual things that they love doing. I've got people that love the client side, the commercial side, like being in front of clients, like convincing them from a sales arena. So we make sure that forms part of their role. And so I would always say for you to experience as much as you can to understand what it is that you actually like to do. I think that then enables you to have a focus, put smaller milestones in front of that focus and say, right, if I get to that, I'll be okay with there. If I get to that, because sometimes me looking at partner when I joined on day one seemed like a long way away. But I knew that if I'd got to a certain revenue, if I'd managed to change the technical, if I'd got us more efficient, if I'd got in this, I'd put in milestones for me that knew, hang on, I'm still achieving. Even if I haven't got that end goal, that isn't going to happen overnight. So let's put some things in that I can measure and make me believe I'm moving forward. So that's why I say don't let others determine the speed or determine your day. And I think that is so important.
I remember Arnold Schwarzenegger saying, if anyone wants to write a book, maybe you can take this away. But he said most people procrastinate because they think the project is too big. Where do I start? And he said, if you write a page a day,
Yeah,
do that for a year. By the end of the year, you've got a 365-page book. And sometimes like breaking it down, I think the way that you've approached things is that marginal gains. What do I need to achieve today that make myself 1% better than I was yesterday? And you look back 365 days later, and suddenly you've made a huge, you don't always see it when you're living it in real time, but you're able to look back with that
yeah,
reflective mindset and with hindsight and go, oh my God, we've achieved so much. I know something that you've been doing, we've talked a little bit about today, is your ability to take your teams with you on your journey.
yeah,
And you've been recognized as well, I know, for your approach to developing talent within your teams.
yeah.
Can you elaborate a little bit on some of the strategies that you use for nurturing and training your internal talent?
I think for me, it goes back to what we just said. We give people milestones. So we have things like when people join, they're buddied with somebody else, but they have a 6-month milestone. So it tells them what we expect because it can be really overwhelming, particularly if you've not worked in a bureau and working on multiples of clients. It can be incredibly overwhelming to be put into there and can often feel new systems. No one likes being the new person. So it can feel that you're never moving forward. So we put milestones in because we go, look, this is all we expected at this time. You're doing that. And so we found that that helps them to actually settle in. We have, for me, I have one-on-ones with everyone in my team. And remember, they're on 4 locations. We have that normally once, twice a year. And it's outside of the review periods and things like that. But that's for them to talk to me direct.
So what's the size and scale of your team?
So
Said 4
at
locations.
the moment we're in 4 locations, so Reading, London, Manchester, and Glasgow, and we've now got a team of 52. So the team's grown considerably, and that's why I think it's even more important that people get that time with me, because if you don't see me every day and you're not in the office with me or you're not where I am, you might not feel that. So we have what we call these success conversations, and they're very much outside of reviews, but they enable people to tell me what what they want from their careers, what they're doing. And it might be, well, this is happening in my life, so I don't want this, but I want, brilliant, that's fine. What's the long-term goal? And it enables me to then feed back what our thoughts are in the business and, what my growth plan is for 5 years to enable them to understand where they can fit in. So, the growth plan includes growing the advisory. So there's lots of different work. So it's okay, you've shown an interest in that. we'll know that when we do that next project, you can go along with the individual. So it enables us to start actually addressing with the business needs with the individual, so they are moving in that journey with me. And I think that is so important for them to understand what their place in the business and their contribution to that business. So we do lots of report backs. We do quarterly feedback from clients, and we feed that back to our team, and they score us just on four areas. There's a scoring system. So that's great when you can say, like, all your clients scored, 18 to 20 for you. And it's an amazing thing to be able to feedback, because let's face it, in payroll, people always hear when things go wrong. They don't necessarily hear when it's great. And that's because they're doing such a great job. Everyone just expects it. And so for me, it's about giving people those sort of feedbacks, knowing where they are, nurturing those skills. I suppose I've done this a long time now, and it enables me. So I do challenge my team. And so when we've had new roles are coming in, because when I first joined, our clients might have only, I think our biggest client was about 600-700 people. Our biggest client now is 15,000 people. So the world is very different in the work that's there. And we break that down as well. So we have what we call our southern and our northern processing teams, and they tend to deal with UK payroll. But we have a global team as well, and that deals with global payrolls. So it has more complexities, and you'll be using different systems to link with all of the other countries. We then have our partnership team that is working with third-party HR software, etc. So you're dealing with completely different data from there as well. And so it gives everyone different skill sets, abilities to learn different elements of payroll. So very big payroll processing to small portfolios of clients. So it gives them that chance to understand what they want to do, where they can progress, the work they like to do, and give them a mix of that to continue to develop. But yeah, I will push. So I'll have people that when I think they're right, I think you need to move into this team now, into the partnership team, and they'll be like, oh no, it's too much, it's too big. No, it's not. I think you're great for it. I think you're going to love that. And then to watch them, a year later, and they are amazing. One of, the top process in our team, and one of our managers who's funny enough going into that realm, when I said to her, I want you to go into that team, I want you to lead that team, she was like, oh, absolutely not, it's not for me. And she's killing it. She's amazing.
It reminds me of we had Stephen Covey on the show talking about his book Trust and Inspire.
Yeah.
When you put loads of trust in an employee, at the start, that's what really brings inspiration. It sounds like you trusted that
Yeah.
individual wholeheartedly to deliver in that role when they didn't even trust
No.
themselves. That trust now is resulted in some inspiration, and I'm sure it came with a lot of perspiration as well to get there. But now that, as you said, they're delivering great results.
And exactly. And I think that's the thing. I can see it, and you can see the things that I can see that dynamic. As I said, I've done it a long time. So you tend to be able to pick up when they've got that. And fear traps a lot of people. Fear stops people moving forward because they don't think. And what, as I said earlier, I wanted to give a safe environment that said, do you know, if it doesn't work for you and you don't like it, you can go back. There's plenty of work. It's not like we're running out of payrolls. We've got plenty of work. So you can go back, but I want you to try it to determine, is this something you can do? And I think for me, I think that is so important, because I've watched people flourish and become the most amazing payroll professionals by somebody just giving them a bit of trust. And I think that is where things need to change in the payroll profession. We need to get away from, I fully appreciate when things go wrong, it takes such a long time to clean up and things like that. But actually, it rarely goes wrong. And if you've got the right controls, then you can control the risk. And so for me, I think it's so important. You trust your people, you get so much back, so much.
Trust and inspire.
Yeah.
Trust and inspire. So look, I think anyone listening to this will get a feel for your passion, your energy for the profession. But what fuels it? What is it? Where does that all come from for you?
I think for me, people is probably the main, to be in a wonderful position to watch, to have watched Paul develop and become a partner, and, and to know that he had all of those skills, but probably didn't believe it because somebody didn't guide him, show him, give him the tools to enable him to be the amazing person he is. And I think to watch people in my team to do that, and to watch others with, Jess in my team, who I know you know, and how inspirational she's been through her journey recently, and
Yeah.
how she's just shown more resilience that I could ever possibly think of somebody having. And I think it's those things that make me get up in the morning and go, how could I not be excited by this when I'm surrounded by these great people? And these are the legacy, this is when I walk away and I retire into the sun. These are the people that are going to be there. And that is part of the legacy I want to leave. So I think people are big. I think it doesn't stop with work. I always thought, or when I got to here, or when we got to 5 million, that would be enough. And it's like, no, there's loads more out there to grab. What are you doing? Like, you can't stop now. So building that new part of the business, I realized how much I do like the new part and doing something new. That for me is really important. So until that stops, then I think that's always going to be exciting. But I think that continuing to raise the profile of payroll, I think it's the responsibility of the people that have been privileged to have a voice in this. And I think you're one of those that as I said earlier, I think is amazing for the industry. But I think it's a privilege to be in this position, but it's so important for us to help others to find their voice, to ensure that we continue. Payroll is very different and respected very differently. And I think it's important that that continues. So people, payroll drives businesses and decision making, and we get more and more payroll people at the top table for me. And yeah, we've started and it's amazing how far we've come, but there's still so much to do. So I think they're the things that make me get up in the morning and go, yeah, we've not finished yet.
This is for you, Maria. Now, on a serious note, I couldn't agree more. I think I like the idea that where you've had to constantly reinvent yourself to move with how the payroll industry's moved. I love the coaching phrase of "what got you here won't get you there."
Yeah.
So it's constantly reevaluating where we are right now. So right now, last question for you is: we're on the precipice of AI changing the landscape of payroll and the world, not just payroll, but all functions really. What is it that's making you excited for the future, and why should those listening to this, share your passion, share your excitement? Tell us a little bit about how you see the future of the industry.
Oh, I think it's, as I said, when we started this, I think it's changed dramatically from thinking back to how manual everything was to where we are today. And even to give a shout out to the HMRC, who would have thought RTI would be the savior? And I'd love, that, but now I go back to the manual days of, year end and think this was one of the best inventions ever came out of the HMRC. So I really can't knock them for that. So I think technology has a massive place, and I love, and anyone who knows me knows that I'm very driven and I look at best of breed. So I'm constantly out there looking at new technology. And I think AI has a place. I'm not sure, I don't think it's gone quite where everyone thought it was going to, but I think it definitely has a place. Within BDO, we built our own sort of chatbot with something called personas. And so it means that we can protect our data, because obviously the nature of the work that we do. And so we can protect it. And we use it an awful lot in the payroll team to help us to put things together, to understand how to respond to things, but generally just looking at how things would be answered if we're looking at a question. And we're obviously building that for payroll. And that's the thing, you can build it specific for your team as well and develop it for us, independently. So it's now getting more and more payroll knowledge. So it's an amazing tool. So I love that, and the team love that. And so we're definitely seeing it in there. I think we're seeing more systems coming into the market that have got more technology built into them, and realizing the need for them to connect with other tools. That's no doubt. People are at a disadvantage if your tool does not integrate with others. So we're seeing that. We use a lot of robotic processes, which I love. Because I think they're amazing, and they're sort of the start of AI. They just don't do the intelligence bit, but actually a lot of AI and what people see, a lot of that is robotic process at the front part.
I agree.
I think that's amazing. So I think people get sometimes a bit confused by that. And we use that a lot to move data, to secure it, to minimize risks, and it saved huge amounts of time and money because of that. So I see all of those things, and we use other tools. So we've got a check-in tool And I always sort of say it's a bit more like, Excel on steroids, and it is absolutely amazing at check-in. So things that have been adjusted against that and being able to point so it can check in less than, I think it's 0.8 of a minute, 120,000 lines of data and tell us where it doesn't match. And so that's amazing power. And I think the more people are not scared of using that and not getting taken in, I think it can become overwhelming. I think if you just look at a process and go through that process, and anything that is repeatable in that process, there's probably a piece of technology you can use to help you. And I think if you break it down like that, the overwhelming part stops and the excitement starts with actually things can change. So, when I came, people could run probably on average, they were running about 400-500 pay slips. Our team in certain ones that are running lots and lots of payroll were nearly 2,000. In our larger payroll team, it's up to 6,000 a person. So it just shows that using technology, I remember being with a client recently, and I said to the payroll manager there, payroll professionals don't keep data. Payroll professionals are there to review legislation and regulation to
And
make sure it's
and your team hasn't got any smaller, has it? You're
no,
still growing, you're expanding, you've got a team of 52. So, for those that are worried about some of these things, and those people in your teams are doing much more exciting work. As you
exactly.
mentioned, you've got some people doing technical work, analytical work, and that's, AI can really help us, or technology and automation can really help us, diversify the
Yeah.
nature of what we do day to day and keep it exciting, keep it fresh, keep people bought in, make it more exciting for the new world of work that they're going to be entering the workplace, and make it a profession of choice for those
And making
individuals.
it more responsible for giving great quality data, great reporting that can help drive business decisions. That's what gets
Absolutely.
you noticed when you're actually giving something to that C-suite, telling them this is what our costs are. Remember, staff costs are probably one of the most expensive in pretty much every business. And so if you're able to find better ways to deal with that, tackle that, and be in a more, rather than a reactive, in a more proactive approach to how you manage that, that's where your worth comes in. And so for
Absolutely.
me, it's about looking at payroll differently. It's not just processing anymore, it's everything else that surrounds that.
Well, you said you wanted to leave legacy. I'm hoping this podcast will stand the test of time. We'll keep it hosted for as long as the show is live. So whenever that time when you need to go and retire in the sunshine, I think the advice you've given today will still hold its own for those that want to progress in the world of payroll. So thank you ever so much for joining me today. Of course, we're going to open the payroll vault. Three short, sharp questions. The first one is based on advice. So one piece of advice you would give to payroll professionals who are aspiring to become leaders in the future.
I think, as I said earlier, take control. Take control. Don't be afraid of challenges. Don't be afraid of setting goals that might not seem where you want to be, and take control of your destiny. I think that's important. And try and open yourself to as many challenges to remove the fear, because a lot of the times when I've been there, and my greatest lessons was when I felt the most sort of, how am I going to do this? No one's here to support me on this. How am I going to do that? But the achievement that you get when you do is so great. And then you realize, actually, what was I scared of? Why was I scared? I'm not doing brain surgery. I wish I could say I was, but I'm not. So for me, it's not that like, and so you've just got to focus. Where do you want to be? What do you want to achieve? And what do you want your day to be? That, I think, is the
Love that.
things that I would say.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I'm actually shameful plug here. I'm going to give it. People don't know this. I'm writing a book at the minute which talks about how our potential lives on the other side of our fear.
Yeah.
And I think what you've just mentioned there is absolutely right. Don't be fearful. Lean into it, because that's where
Yeah.
opportunity exists. Obviously, you've done that throughout your career. You've encouraged your teams to do the same, and now we're seeing some fantastic results. So perhaps I'll get you involved, and you can write the foreword for me,
Oh, that'd be
Maria. There
nice,
we go.
wouldn't it?
Add to your legacy. Add to your legacy. Okay, question number two. We'll talk about visionary change here. So, if you could change the entire payroll industry with one action or improvement, what would that action or improvement be?
I think it would be, I think technology. I think the improvement of that. I think it's come in, it's taken a bit of time, but I think to other people, don't be afraid. I've yet to find one system that does everything. So don't be afraid of utilizing different tools to get where you want to get to. And I think when you do, you stop yourself being held a prisoner with a system. And so I would say utilize technology, look around, go to the market. I go to pretty much every conference, tech, of anything, accounting, HR, payroll, anything within our arena that touches payroll. So I understand what's out there, what's available, what are people using, what are people doing. So I think, yeah, for me, tech is big, and that's where the big change should occur.
So my final question should be, but it's not, is whenever do you find time to sleep? But that's not the question. The question is a little bit of a fun insight. If Payroll was a song or a movie,
Oh,
what song or movie would it be and why?
oh no, this I honestly don't know these kind of ones. I really think I wish I was quick at this.
Or it could
Um,
be a musical. I know you're a big fan of musicals, if you want, if that makes it a bit easier.
no, I would. Oh, so I would say money, money, money. I think that does, because it's in a number of musicals, really. I Oh no, I want to say something really fun, and I don't know.
This is the first time I've ever met Maria Mason speechless.
Yeah,
Let's hold
you
this
know,
thought.
you can ask me about the world of payroll until I'm blue in the face, but yeah, ask me something that's attached, and yeah, no, I'm not really sure.
We'll go with money, money, money.
Yeah, I think yeah,
If that's where your gut lies. The first thing that comes to your mind. Let's go with
yeah.
that. That works for me. That works for me. Well, Maria Mason, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope everyone listening to this is coming away with so many valuable insights. Because I haven't just shared your career journey with us today. Hopefully, you've given a number of tools and thought processes and psychological things really for people to consider if they really want to advance their careers and how you view the industry. And look, it's not easy balancing experience with qualification, balancing work life with payroll, which we know is really challenging, balancing different stakeholders. You work at a partner-based organization where you've got a multitude of different bosses, if you like,
Yeah.
and that's even more challenging. We didn't even get to that on today's show. So thank you ever so much for nurturing the talent in this industry, for really putting it on the map, for constantly being a voice that amplifies the power of payroll and the profile of payroll for others. It's been an absolute pleasure. Always is talking to
Always
you.
a
I know
pleasure.
we could talk for hours. So thank you for joining me. Of course, I will put a LinkedIn profile of yours in the show notes for those that want to connect. I'll also put a link to BDO's payroll services. So if you're interested in finding out more or even working with Maria as a client, then obviously you can do that through the show notes as well. And of course, just finally, if you've enjoyed today's episode, please do remember to follow it, subscribe to it, share it with your payroll colleagues. We're both myself and Maria trying to raise the profile of payroll. So that's the way that you can do it as a listener as well. So please do that for us and join us for the next episode of the Payroll Podcast real soon. But finally, Maria Mason, thank you once more for joining me today on today's episode. I always enjoy it. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Nick.
Global teams are more connected today than ever, but managing payroll, HR, and IT can still feel fragmented. But Deel simplifies global work with one platform that keeps everything running smoothly. No compliance guesswork, no third party payroll, just seamless operations backed by 24/7 expert support. That's why over 35,000 companies trust Deel to handle their global workforce. Visit deel.com/nickday to see how Deel can help. That's DEEL.com/NICKDAY. Deel, your forever people platform.